Hey horror fans, happy October once again. On this video, we're going to be talking about a new Amazon movie. It's called The House of Spoils or House of Spoils. So this is a co-production with Blumhouse, if I can say it right. So the setup for the movie is that a promising young chef leaves her current kitchen, because she gets an offer to start up a new kitchen on the site of this old house, and it's with a rich kind of friend that she knows, and they're meant to have like rich investment in this new kitchen, but supernatural stuff starts going wrong. There's pressure from the investors who are threatening and they might pull out, but there's all this drama with the previous tenant of this house who died years ago, and there's a whole supernatural thing where things start going wrong in the kitchen. So it's almost like a metaphor for that, and her struggles in getting this kitchen up and running and ready for like this big event. Adriana DeBose, who most people would know from the Spielberg version of West Side Story, she is the lead of this movie. Barbie Farrell, who plays like the assistant in the kitchen, she's out of Euphoria, the HBO show. That's what she's probably best known for. So yeah, new movie to stream. Rachel, what did you think of House of Spoils?
Seen worse movies than this, but I think that's probably the nicest thing I could say about it.
Yeah.
Look, first of all, this is not a horror movie. Blumhouse need to stop doing this, like advertising these movies that, like, as horror movies. There was no horror in this movie. There was maybe a little bit of atmosphere in a few places, but mostly it seemed like confined to like fake out jump scares and like weird imagery that just didn't work. I thought the main chick was fine. She wasn't that likable, but she wasn't like a completely detestable main character either. And because most of the movie was like mostly her, I think she carried that quite well. But I think that I think this movie didn't know what it wanted to be. It felt to me like 80% of the time, this movie wanted to be like a critique slash parody slash satire of fine dining, kind of like The Menu. And then like the other 20%, we had that weird kind of like witchy ghost story that they were trying to weave into the story. But for me, and when we get more into the story aspects, we'll talk about this, they didn't put enough of that in, so that when we finally got to the climax of the movie, it didn't really work. It didn't really make much sense. I didn't think that really many of the characters were that great. The sous chef, the chick played by I thought she was good. Like, I really liked the sous chef. She was fun. But, like, a lot of the other characters I found were just very flat or kind of too cliched. And yeah, I didn't think it was very interesting, this movie. Again, we've definitely seen worse movies than this. Like, we've definitely reviewed worse movies, but I didn't think it was that great. I found that when I was watching it and like everything was going wrong for her, I was getting like more pissed off than scared. I was like, oh, come on, just give her a break, let her restaurant, work. And I don't know, there was some of the stuff like when it first started, it felt like some of the writing was really bad. Like, some of the chef talk was a little too pretentious, and they had like this one line at the beginning where they're like, a real chef doesn't just cook with their head, they cook with their balls. And I was like,
there's a lot of talk of balls, isn't there, in the movie?
yeah. So
Yeah.
overall, I didn't love it. Yeah, it just really wasn't that great. How did you go with it?
Yeah. Well, just a question for you, because I think you've got a point about the movie maybe didn't know what it wanted to be,
Mm.
because it seemed to be playing up the metaphor of like things going wrong in the kitchen, just almost like a disaster type in the kitchen. But
Yeah.
then there was sprinkles of like horror. Don't really think it's a horror. So for you, doesn't the fact that there's a witch and there's a bit of a ghost type thing, isn't that enough to make it a horror? And
theory, yes, but in actual execution, no. Like for me, this
Okay,
feels more like a kind of like maybe a thriller with like slightly supernatural elements.
true.
Like because I think that even like a non-horror watcher would watch this movie and not be scared, like because obviously we watch a lot of horror, so we get very desensitized, and it does take quite a bit to scare us. So usually, what I try to do is I will judge a movie. I'll be like, if I was a non-horror watcher, or if I watched this 20 years ago when everything used to scare me, would this scare me? And no, this movie I
Mm,
don't think would scare anyone really.
okay. Well, yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you on the movie. I think it is very middling. It's quite plodding, and I think the problem is, I definitely agree it can't make up its mind what it wants to be. And also the other problem is then it succeeds probably in being quite authentic to this world and to what sort of characters they are. But the problem is I can't stand people like this, and I can't stand this world. And the challenge of this sort of story is it has to make those characters charismatic and interesting to watch beyond that. And you have to care more about them. Because it's funny, one of the other cast members is out of Succession. The one who's playing like the guy who's her friend,
Who's
he's
the
out of
investor? Okay.
yeah.
Ah, okay.
But that's a good example of really rich, unlikable characters. But they're
Mm,
so compelling to watch, and there's
yes.
like fantastic dialogue.
Mm.
And this just isn't that. I mean, like you said, there's some really clunky, cheesy dialogue. Because at one point, like the investor is talking about how like the the food has no voice or something like that. Just
Like no
stuff like
personality and
yeah,
like,
no.
oh, it has no identity. I'm like, oh my God, it's food. Just put it in your mouth and eat it.
Yeah, see, this is my thing. I just hate this whole world, this whole
I
culture,
know.
and yeah, how we have to treat it like it's a work of art. Because we can all appreciate nice food at the end of the day, and we all say, "Yeah, good job. We really enjoyed this, top marks." But yeah, you don't have to go into a whole like repertoire on it and whole like, yeah, this is like poetry, emotion, or like whatever. So I think that's where the film fails. Like it fails in making these characters interesting to watch and to really care about the story, because the story was pretty much by the numbers in many ways. We've kind of done this before. It it wasn't terrible to watch, and it's quite a short film, so that's to its advantage. But yeah, like you said, the horror didn't really do anything for me. Like it wasn't particularly scary. It is pretty good. Like I'm guessing this because I've not seen West Side Story, not that version of
But
it,
either. No.
but I'm guessing that was a more glamorous type role. So it feels a bit like she's trying to do something different with this.
Yeah.
And I think at times it felt like she was in a different movie though, like because she did
Mm.
feel like a little bit more grounded and nervous than the rest of the characters. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, she was okay. There was a couple of scenes where she was a little bit over the top, but I think that was at the point where she was meant to have been really under the influence and quite sort of stressed out. And yeah, but she was okay. Like she was decent, and there was nothing necessarily wrong with the cast. It was more just the characters were pretty bland and boring, or they were just annoying, but not in a very interesting way. And yeah, I think ultimately when it plays out at the end, you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's okay, but it's not anything that's going to set your mind on fire. It's not anything you haven't seen before, and it's not
No.
like yeah, like I just felt they could have done a bit more with like the ending and revealing what exactly happened.
Definitely. And especially because I really felt like the ending and like where we ended up with the reveal about the witches and stuff was completely unearned because they just did not put enough of it in the movie. Like I feel like if they wanted to do this whole subplot with like, so we find out that like, yeah, there was apparently a woman who lived in this house and the townsfolk said that she was a witch and eventually like drove her out and she was evil or whatever. And I feel like that part of the story, they did not give enough focus to it. So when we finally got into like, we'll get into some slight spoilers here, guys, but trust me, there's not really that much to this movie to spoil. So
Mm.
it's not really that bad. But, when we get into the part towards the end when she's like crawling through the tunnels and she finds the witch's body and then she finds out that, the witch was actually like a good witch, it was more about like reconnecting with the earth and growing from the garden and like, she was unfairly vilified by the villagers. It actually made me think of like a poor man's version of like Fear Street, like that reveal that Sarah Fear was actually not the evil witch, but that was earned, because the whole trilogy we'd been given hints about this. This was like all of a sudden we were like, oh, okay, so the witch isn't evil. Then why was she messing with the chef in the first place? Why was she like haunting her and sending her weird dreams? And I think there's supposed to be some sort of message about like, growing from the earth and taking things from the earth. And, because the climax is all like they go outside and they cook outdoors and they, get in touch with nature. But like for me, that part of the movie was not stressed enough. We like I said, we spent like 80% on the restaurant and like 20% on the witch and that aspect. And so when that whole, reveal came up, it really didn't work for me, and therefore the ending of the movie didn't work for me because there wasn't enough groundwork. Do you feel the same, or did
Yeah,
that story work a bit better for you?
no, I'm pretty much the same.
Mm.
Like, yeah, there should have been a little bit more focus on the horror stuff and on what was happening with the witch a little bit more. And yeah, ultimately the horror moments just didn't work for me. Like, they just weren't very gripping or unsettling. And because I thought, obviously, in some ways, there's moments of this film I like, and some of the food stuff was like well done, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I was going to say that. I was going to say, I think like the best parts of the films and like the best part of like the camera work and the editing and stuff was when they were displaying the
yeah,
food. But then that's what made me so confused because I'm like, we're not watching a foodie. This is supposed to be a foodie, movie.
yeah.
So it was like, why are you spending so much time on that aspect when you should be spending it on like the more horror aspect?
Yeah, it's almost like, in some ways, like the film was very mundane. Like, that's a good word for it, because
Yes.
yeah, you either make it more of a horror, like you go full
Mm.
blown with that stuff, or you at least make it like this rip roaring sort of satire, which kind of
Exactly.
has a lot to say. It's quite
Mm.
sharp. But in the end, like you said, in a way, it played out a lot like a drama, maybe like a thriller a bit, and you just had things that were added a bit. Like I think in a way the supernatural stuff was a bit tacked on and didn't quite get enough time at the end.
Wondering if maybe the script started as like some parody of like the fine dining menu and then they couldn't sell it, so maybe someone came along and said, hey, what if we add like this element to it and turn it into a horror? Like, because it just really, it was not a horror. The horror elements were not great, and like we've just said, they seem to spend more time on the food and on that aspect. And look, I don't mind a movie that pokes fun at fine dining because I'm a bit like you. I do think it's a bit pretentious. I think it's a bit over the top. I don't mind a fine dining experience, but sometimes at the end of the day, I'm just like, just give me a steak and mashed potatoes. You don't have to always make it so fancy. So, like, I remember being really taken aback and loving the menu when it came out because I thought that
Mm.
was a great parody of fine dining. But yeah, this just it fell short because it wasn't really committing to either side of its story. And I think that was the biggest problem. It's like it wouldn't commit to the fine dining parody, it wouldn't commit to the supernatural. So we got this very, I think what you said was great, mundane, this very mundane, very blah, middle of the road movie, which was not terrible. It didn't have me tearing my hair out or talking about how stupid the characters were or anything like that. It just more had me go, this is this is okay, like
Yeah.
it kind of came away with that feeling.
And probably it's going to suffer maybe a bit in comparison with the menu because
Mm.
people love that so much. And that seemed to be like kind of the ultimate version of this in some ways. So, yeah. Well, I think we've talked really about it because there's not a lot to the movie in some ways. So we've kind of summed it up, I think. So, okay. So what would you rate House of Spoils?
Go straight down the middle, just 5 out of 10. Like I said, we've definitely
Okay.
reviewed worse movies. I think that the main chick is fine. I think that if you gave her a meteor role, she could probably do it. Like I said, I did enjoy some of the cinematography, some of the food stuff. I thought some of the stuff where they did a bit of a parody was all right. Like I said, I really did like the sous chef. I thought she was fun, but there was nothing spectacular about this, and definitely had the tonal problem, just not being able to figure out what it wanted to be. So I'm going to go with a 5. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'll agree with the 5. That's what I was thinking as well. So yeah, that's what they definitely made the right decision in just putting this straight to streaming, because there's nothing
Definitely, yes.
about it which has to be seen on a big
No,
screen,
no.
really. So there's that, but no. One I would recommend, because I know they've done a few on Amazon Blumhouse, but one I would recommend is The Manor. That's a good one.
Oh, okay.
And that has Barbara Hershey in, and
Oh, I love Barbara
great
Hershey.
actress. Yeah, and also Bruce Davison. So you've got a little
Okay,
bit
I
of
like him too.
he's
Yeah,
good
that's
character
decent.
actor. So
Mm.
yeah, that's one which is on Amazon, which is a Blumhouse one. So I think I might have reviewed it a few years ago, but that's one I'd recommend. That's our thoughts on House of Spoils. Let us know what you think in the comments below if you have seen the movie. Like and subscribe as always. You can also let us know what you've been watching this October, and support me at patreon.com/board now for a bunch of extra perks. That's just for $1 a month, and also channel memberships. You can sign up to those 3 different tiers, and you get a range of extra perks, including commentaries and sort of behind the scenes type videos and various other things. So you can support me that way if you wish. And Rachel, if you want to plug your channel.
You can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on movies and TV shows. I also have my Tumblr and Instagram links on my YouTube, so you can come and follow me everywhere.
Okay, that's great. Hope you're having a good spooky season, guys, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.